Hey, welcome to Framework. I'm John, one of the hosts of Framework, and with me, as always, the other host of Framework, Al. Good morning, sir.
Morning, John. We have to explain what we're doing here today.
A bit.
Which is our follow-up. You know, we did our episode about Quentin Tarantino knockoffs because that is a subgenre unto itself. It definitely wasn't the 90s. It feels like it still is a little bit today.
Just saw Weapons. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're kind of thinking, well, let's apply a similar lens to the other directors we've done. And so our next director that we did chronologically was David Fincher. And it's a little harder to nail down exactly what a David Fincher knockoff would be.
Yeah, it's not as obvious and prescribed as a Quentin Tarantino ripoff. I mean, that is a genre unto itself.
No one is a genre unto themselves as clearly as he is.
I think Fincher is an inspiration, though. Like a filmmaker who's made as many great films, as many landmark important films as David Fincher has, is by necessity going to be an inspiration to the people that come after, even to people that are working his contemporaries, you might say. There are specifically for David Fincher, I think, two enormous movies that really did become movies that were, ripped off or quoted or inspirations upon future works in a very significant way. We were talking about this, and that's Seven and The Social Network. But then there's others that kind of also have their own cultural identity that also led to other versions too. So that's sort of, I think, the tack we're going with here.
Seven and The Social Network did both sort of inspire their own strains of knockoffs. However, those are two very, very different movies operating in very, very different genres. So those are Fincher, almost like one of the absentee fathers from Fight Club. He moved to a different genre and set up a new franchise for the other people to come and expand upon. And that's how I think it's going to be with a couple of these other directors too. Is less than like with Tarantino, there's a very identifiable Tarantino thing that kind of runs through all of his movies. And with these other directors, sometimes it's that they have multiple different movies that are influential in different ways and so inspire their different breed of knockoffs. The other thing I think that we're going to hit on a lot of this is that, what tends to get copied by people is it's the surface level stuff. It is a lot of the, particular maybe methods of shooting with Tarantino. It's particular types of dialogue digressions or the big impossible to miss like nonlinear structure, whatever. And what we're sort of interested in doing is looking at what did we learn from going through all these filmographies and what was our takeaway. So like with Tarantino, the thing we identified going through there is that he loves to put people on screen giving performances and being directed to give performances for life and death stakes. And so, well, you could say obviously the movies we talked about there are kind of surface level ripoffs of him with your Things to Do with Denver When You're Dead or Truth or Consequences New Mexico or whatever we talked about. But I was thinking like, if you were trying to imitate him at a thematic level, would Argo have been a better thematic twin for what Tarantino is actually interested in? Because that is a thing where people have to put on this performance for life and death stakes, and they're not necessarily prepared for it. There's a lot of coaching of them and directing of how they have to act.
The other thing about Argo is it's about how great the movies are. So
exactly, movies save the day. That's I mean, after movies won World War II for us in Inglourious Bastards, they also resolved the hostage crisis in Iran in the 80s, according to Argo. So it's like, is there an equivalent of that for Fincher? Does he have a thematic preoccupation that runs through his stuff and makes things identifiably Fincher?
I mean, on a narrative level, there's like nothing connecting, let's say, Social Network and Seven. There is
much less Mank and Benjamin Button.
Right. There is a fastidiousness to the filmmaking itself, though. There is an attention to detail, an obsession, you might say, with detail that marks all his films. That's a tough thing to say. Well, people are imitating Fincher's obsessive qualities. That doesn't follow exactly. It is apparent in the films, but it's also just sort of, the same thing as having very good craft, you might say. So that's a tough thing to track as a direct influence of the man himself.
Well, there's two things that I think you could identify. One, I guess, a bigger surface level thing, and coming out, he hit it big in the late 90s. And so big twists were a thing then, and you could say, Fight Club, The Game, Gone Girl, these have big twists in them. Seven, arguably, I feel like was kind of lumped in there. It's not so much really a twist there as it's just shocking how that movie ends.
Right.
But it's not necessarily a twist on the level of Fight Club or Gone Girl, where it sort of reframes everything that's been happening throughout the first couple acts of those movies.
I mean, those are straight adaptations of popular novels, though. I mean, which is also another thing that Fincher really got into, is adapted works. That's another thing. He rarely generates his own material. He mostly is taking interesting stories and crafting them. That's sort of his thing, really. Did he write any of his movies? I don't think so, right?
I mean, Mank. Well, no, his dad wrote Mank, right?
Yeah.
And no, even The Killer was adapted, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. From a comic, which is inspired by Le Samurai.
Right.
Yeah.
Panic Room was not based on anything, but he didn't write it. No. Seven was an original script, but not by him. But the other thing, that the thematic preoccupation that I see him return to repeatedly is the idea of compulsion. And
yes,
the scene, there is obviously this is not a ripoff of him because it came before he started his career, but I always identified The Vanishing as the sort of Rosetta Stone for understanding Fincher's filmography, because I see in his filmography repeatedly this idea of the person who has every reason to know that they shouldn't go through that door, they shouldn't go into that basement, and yet they have this itch that they a need to know for certain something, and that drives them to right into the serial killer's hand is how it usually plays out, or the potential serial killer in the case of like that Zodiac. That's a dragon tattoo. It's very explicit with the Skarsgård monologue. It's in the season finale of Mindhunter of the first season.
Oh, sure, right, yeah.
And so
it's Gone Girl. That's kind of the end of Gone Girl too.
It's the end of Gone Girl. That's right. Yeah, it's right back into the spider's web. So that is, to me, I guess, he's a slippery one, Fincher. He's not trying to put his voice front and center the way that Tarantino is, but that seems to be a scene construction, an idea that he keeps returning to, that keeps fascinating him.
That said, there is this film called Seven that he made. That was a very big hit, a very influential, very important movie in the 1990s. Launched careers. Pretty much everyone kind of hit the next plateau of their career because they appeared in Seven. And the general aesthetic of the film and sort of, in many ways, the plot construction and structure ended up becoming massively influential. And there were dozens of films that tried to ape this movie and be versions of Seven. I mean, it was, you could say it started a sort of movement of grim, dark serial killer thrillers. Well, there's Silence of the Lambs in there as well. I mean, it's basically those two movies combined spurn, just a machine that creates versions of those. And those last for about 15 years. I mean, they're still getting made to some extent.
Seven is also, okay, Silence of the Lambs is a little more classical in its filmmaking, and Seven brings the sort of like Nine Inch Nails music video aesthetic into it. And that becomes sort of the dominant version of it for a few years until I guess Saw comes along, and then would you
Saw
say that
codifies
the
it.
seven clones became Saw ripoffs after a while?
Well, yeah, I mean, we talked about this when we talked about Seven. Is that a lot of the credit and or blame for the torture porn movement in horror is kind of laid at David Fincher's feet for that film, and you know, unfairly, fairly, it doesn't really matter. The point is, you know, the trend starts right around there with these disgusting crime scenes that look horribly unhygienic, that are all about, you know, these terrible choices that must be made. Like, ooh, what would you do if you were in this situation? Which is the entire basis of Saw. Saw feels like they took Seven and were just like, we can do a thing with this, right? We can turn this into a cheap, shitty franchise, no problem. And then they did. I just rewatched Saw, actually, in preparation for this podcast, because it felt like, of the torture porn movement, that felt like the one that was most directly cribbing from Fincher and from Seven.
Well, from Seven, yeah, I wouldn't say there's much about Fincher's exacting style.
No, not at all.
That goes into. You don't see the influence of any other Fincher movie besides Seven in there.
No, but the sets look like they came from Seven. You know, like the dirty bathrooms that they're in are all right out of the Seven playbook. And
the serial killer mastermind. You know, it's got the very elaborate, Rube Goldberg plot.
And there's he's sort of punishing people for their wrongs within his eyes. You know, like he views himself as sort of a judge and jury executioner or angel of vengeance or something. You know, there was a methodology to him that, you know, you could see a version of Silence of the Lambs doing this, but it's a lot more heightened and silly in Saw because it's cribbing directly from, well, frankly, a bit of a silly character in Seven too, that they take great pains in Seven to make logical sense, to give him a psychological reality. Not really the case with Jigsaw.
Jigsaw is I mean, Saw is not descended from Silence of the Lambs because, I guess, of the aesthetics are so different that Jigsaw, listens to Marilyn Manson, where Hannibal Lecter listens to Vivaldi or whatever, you know, and the movie's looks reflect that distinction.
Yes, and that's why I think it is the most like Seven and not Silence of that crop. You know, all the one we talk about all the time, Bone Collector. That's cribbing from both pools. You know, a lot of them are Copycat. Like, silly name for a movie.
Oh yeah, Kiss the Girls, Walking the Spider, those Patterson.
Yeah. Usually it's a sort of a combination of the two, but Saw is pretty pure Seven, pretty pure Fincher, or well, not Fincher, but the aesthetics of Seven,
but Seven,
definitely.
I mean, I guess the big distinction there, and why this wasn't the first thing that jumped to my mind for Seven ripoffs, is what makes it torture porn is that it is doing the serial killer has a similar MO kind of to John Doe and Seven, but we are in the perspective of the victims rather than the investigators. Well,
and the cops is the other thing. Like, a big chunk of that movie is about the police investigation. And these are like, you know, these are...
Now that you say that, yeah, you're right. That's the part that you completely forget about, though. Like, that's...
Well,
are they all like that? I haven't seen a bunch of Saw movies.
They're all like that. They all are.
Really?
About
There's
cops.
Always cops involved?
There's so many cops in Seven. Yeah, most of the time they're the main characters. As the franchise goes on, it probably gets more like Seven, if anything. Yeah.
Interesting. Because I only watched the first one, basically. And the cop is the least memorable part of that, and the just iconography of everything that I know from the other series forward, none of it seems to suggest that there's a detective element going on. It's just all traps and victims.
There's so many goddamn
and a puppet, evil puppet.
And of course, there's the puppet. I mean, it's fascinating. I've seen every Saw film once. This was the first time I rewatched a Saw film ever, and I won't be doing that again. Was my main takeaway. They are one and done as a franchise for me. But it is kind of interesting, and if you take a bird's eye view of the franchise, all the weird things they're doing, it is an incredibly weird labyrinthine plotting where time doubles back and you see things from a different perspective, and you're like, oh well, actually this character was doing this at the same time this other thing happened, it's really overly ambitious for what these movies are, and a lot of that is they can't let go of Tobin Bell, the actor who plays Jigsaw. He dies in the third film, yet he has been in all 10 of them, I think. Well, maybe not the Chris Rock one, but otherwise, yeah, he's just he has required them to sort of rejigger the whole thing as a weird time nonsense.
That's what makes it a horror franchise.
Right.
I mean,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which Nightmare on Elm Street is subtitled Freddy's Dead? Is that like number 4 out of 7 or something? And
it's 6 technically out of 7.
Jason went to hell on number 5, maybe. And
no. Well, he went to hell in number 9 out of 11, and the final chapter is number 4. So.
The final chapter is number 4, right? Michael Myers was shot in the face twice and blown up at the end of Halloween 2, and then also killed at the end of Halloween 5, and
right.
And Halloween H2O. Like, how many times have we done the one where they kill the guy?
They refuse to pull the trigger and make Jigsaw a ghost or an undead or anything like that. Is the problem. So they just have to keep being like, well, actually, there's this whole other thing he did. And, the actor, of course, it's been 25-ish years since Saw came out. So this man is a very elderly man now. Is trying to play 50 years old, and he's dying of cancer. So that's kind of how they get away with it. The character Jigsaw. So, look, the point. It's an interesting franchise. It's not a good one, though. I don't think. You have to be a real horror loser like myself to really get into the weeds on all of them. But it certainly, takes its initial inspiration from, the very, very influential film of the 1997. So,
yeah. So, like any serial killer, Baroque serial killer thing that's grimier than Silence of the Lambs is a 7 baby.
Yeah. And the torture porn movement as a whole, Hostel, could have been here just as easily. It's just a little less interesting in this context. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's would you qualify 7 as torture porn?
I think not really. I mean, it's kind of too good a movie for that, but on one level it is, on a certain sense. Part of the visceral thrill of that movie is being like, ew,
Well, yeah, but that's evoked indirectly.
It's not on screen. It's not on screen.
Yeah.
It's reportage for the most part.
Yes.
All the same, you're looking at corpses a lot in that thing.
Yeah, and there's grotesque things in there for sure. It's not that it's too tasteful, but it's just that you're not sitting there with the torture. You are having it recounted to you secondhand. And when you have somebody who's as good of a secondhand recounter as Morgan Freeman, for example, maybe one of the best who's ever done it, that can still be wildly effective.
It is fun. Danny Glover is the cop in Saw.
Right.
Doing, Morgan Freeman stuff. And
how many jobs do you think Danny Glover lost out to Morgan Freeman over the years? Probably 2 or 3
at that period of time, a lot, I think. That's he was next on the call list for quite a few late 90s, early aughts roles, I would imagine. Anyway, it's I think I'm done talking about Saw per se. There's other stuff.
Do you have a favorite 7 ripoff? I've got a soft spot for Fallen.
Always, I guess that would count. It's
Supernatural, so it's kind of a different flavor.
I don't really have a favorite 7 ripoff, to be honest. I have favorite Sons of the Lambs ripoffs.
Okay.
I love 7, but no, I think that when you're explicitly doing a 7 ripoff, you're probably doing the wrong thing with it most of the time. I don't know. It would probably be the best Saw movie, which I have no idea. Saw 6, maybe. That's the one where he goes after health insurance companies. I have no idea. No, I'm not a fan of that particular subgenre.
All right. So here's the other thing to talk about Fincher with, because as we mentioned earlier, he's such a collaborator.
Yes.
There is a thing track when he has a giant hit. It's usually he's working with somebody, a screenwriter usually, or maybe a novelist whose work he's adapting. And then the natural thing to do either from the studio level or the collaborators level. They just have to kind of like separate out and see if like, was Fincher really the secret sauce here? Maybe the secret sauce of Seven was the script by Andrew Kevin Walker. And so the next Andrew Kevin Walker script was for a movie called 8mm, directed by Joel Schumacher. Your go-to for nasty serial killer shit. It's not technically a serial killer movie, but that is one of the most. It's clearly wants to be a spiritual sequel to Seven. Would you say?
Oh yeah, they're going for they're going for a slightly, I don't know. I mean, Seven is like downright prestigious compared to a lot of these movies, and I think they're trying to do that with 8mm, but it is so far outside their actual reach with the material there, and with Schumacher behind the camera. I don't know. Is there the cast is incredible, but is there a version of that movie that comes close to Seven? I mean, maybe if Fincher does it.
Just that it is a complete character actor bonanza in that movie. It's Chris Bauer, James Gandolfini, Catherine Keener. You got a really young Norman Reedus in there.
Joaquin is in there, right? Big
Peter Stormare can be
oh yeah. Is his name Dino Velvet in that? I seem to remember.
It is Dino Velvet. He has not a single line reading that is in the vague vicinity of sane. It is just everything does is completely Stormared out.
That's what you hired him for.
It's amazing to me that both Chris Bauer and James Gandolfini like got out of the 90s without being completely typecast as just like vicious sexual deviants, between like Devil's Advocate and this for Bauer and True Romance in this for Gandolfini.
Gandolfini was probably
Prestige Machine.
He was probably on the route that way. It was headed that direction until he got another role that typecast him. So, and Bauer, Bauer's just a classic character actor. He's often going to continue to play creeps.
But he played two really memorable late 90s like deviants. I mean, Machine is a freak, E plus ultra of
well,
freaks.
I mean, the thing about that though is the reveal of Sex Machine is actually Chris Bauer is kind of meant to be a shocking moment, right? I mean, I think it's pretty didactic about it. In fact, isn't he like, yeah, look at me, I'm just a normal person or something like that.
So that's the problem with I think with this is that it wants to. Well, okay, there's a couple problems here, and I think the casting of Nicolas Cage might be one of them. It's doing a lot of the same like descent into hell stuff that Seven was doing,
right?
Sort of thematically and structurally. But Nick Cage, he's not a normie. Like from the start, like you can just tell it's in his eyes. He's acquainted with madness.
Yeah.
Yes. And so when he's increasingly freaked out by this, I don't buy it entirely. And then, yes, the movie has to like insist upon things. That there's a lot of the villains monologuing at him about his, like as if they're intimately familiar with the thematic journey his character has been on, even though they have just encountered him for the first time. And that that there are no answers, blah blah blah. Like that is in keeping with Fincher preoccupations. That does sound like a Fincher-ish kind of monologue, except it wouldn't be as on the nose, probably. Yeah, it would be something you'd take away from it after the fact. That's interesting. I mean, well, that is essentially what Andrew Kevin Walker comes up with for Seven, you might say. It's just not text. Yeah, well, and actually, I mean, it's just as much text in Dragon Tattoo. It just comes off so much better in the scenario that's concocted there, plot-wise. I think one of the things that's frustrating about this movie, too, is that it's not quite a two-hander with the Joaquin Phoenix character. And so that it lacks like this very clean theatrical dichotomy of like the rookie and the grizzled veteran that Seven had going for it. And that, Seven's a great two-hander of a performance piece. And this, he's, more interesting than the protagonist in a lot of ways, but doesn't get equal footing or billing with him.
What these movies do for me more than anything is they really point out how it's not so much the material in Seven that is just extraordinary and transcendent. It is the way it's treated, the way it is put together and arranged, the craft, you might say. Everything, every aspect of that film is so well managed by Fincher. The performances, the set and mise en scene, the structure, the attention to detail, the amount of time we spend, actually engaging with classical texts. Like you get the sense that, whoever wrote that, Andrew Kevin Walker, really actually probably did read Paradise Lost and some of this other shit of human bondage to kind of get into the psychology of John Doe. I don't know how accurate that is, but you feel that way when you're watching the movie. I don't get that sense from these other things for the most part. It's cheap thrills that people seem to have taken from it. Andrew Kevin Walker also wrote Sleepy Hollow, which is sort of like Tim Burton's version of Seven, actually.
Yeah, well, it's Baroque, I guess, in that way, too.
Mm-hmm. It's a serial killer investigation. It just involves magic.
Yes, in 18th century, upstate New York or whatever. With Headless Horseman involved, yes. And the Headless Horseman's probably more of a human figure than Dino Velvet in the final analysis of things.
Does James Gandolfini die by bleeding out on top of a stack of pornography? That's my memory.
I believe he's ultimately beaten to death and then has a bunch of his pornography dumped on top of him, which I think one of the only ways this was toned down is that the movie is a lot less specific than the script was supposedly about how much child porn was involved in their enterprise.
That's fine. That's okay.
I mean, on the one hand, is there a point in making a tasteful version of 8mm? But on the other hand, that's not the type of distasteful that I need from this.
It's sort of like when they remade Nightmare on Elm Street, and they were just like, yeah, we're going to make it explicit that he's a child molester in this one. Yeah. And it's just like,
I recall it being explicit in the original.
No, it's not. He's a child murderer in this one. They get a lot more granular about it in the remake with Jackie Earle Haley, to the film's detriment, you might say.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to include in a movie that you want people to, on some level, be having a good time with. I just say the Gandolfini death scene is really something. He's really going for it. He's kind of an all-timer example of the monologue of you don't have the guts to shoot me while being held at gunpoint. And he starts licking the barrel at one point.
That's cool. He was so good doing those shitty heavy roles in the before he got Tony Soprano and kind of it grew beyond them. He was always fun showing up in True Romance. Terminal
True Romance scene is an all-timer. That monologue. That's wonderful.
Great actor. So maybe, I don't know, maybe 8mm is my favorite Seven ripoff. Actually, it's nowhere near as good, but it's kind of fun, right? It's kind of a cheesy good time, maybe.
I think it's one of those that sits better in the memory than it does in the actual watching of it, because you remember the character actors' highlights of it, and then so much of the movie is just living in that grimy, Tool video aesthetic, and it's kind of gross. And it's not the first movie to waste Catherine Keener, but probably wastes her more than any other movie ever has.
That's a tall order. I don't know. There's a lot of waste of Catherine Keener going on. But yeah, I didn't even remember she was in that. So is she playing Nicolas Cage's wife?
Yep.
Oh boy. Okay. Yeah.
And there's some faint towards, she's in jeopardy towards the end. And
sure.
I think the Seven actually gives it a little bit of juice there, is that you feel like they might go there with the wife, because if you're familiar with Seven, you know that they've been there before. And maybe that helps the suspense level a little bit the first time through, or when it was in theaters anyway. But, Gwyneth Paltrow is not the most developed character in Seven. She is several stages of evolution past what Keener's given to work with here. So It's a lesser version. It turns out maybe Fincher
Right.
was the secret sauce in the Seven stew, as it turns out.
I mean, he's gotten the credit, so I think it's probably pretty well deserved.
Well, yes, he's got more consistent career than Andrew Kevin Walker. And then, from Seven went to Fight Club.
Right.
And I wouldn't say there's a whole like lineage of Fight Club ripoffs. I'd say Fight Club's interesting to me.
Hard to do. What is it?
Oh, yeah.
You know?
It's so specific.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's part of, I think, a sort of a subgenus of late 90s sort of satires with like Office Space and American Beauty that were just very specific to that era, where having a steady white collar job that, probably paid you six figures was like the lowest circle of hell, according to.
That was a cultural thing too. I can't really put that on Fight Club because American Beauty is doing the same thing in the same year. That was, I think between the two of them, it became its own little thing for a bit there too. Although I don't know, I think that the legs were cut out from under that particular moment by 9/11, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
It did.
And then we're just like, actually, I'm happy having my white collar job and making, $80,000 a year. It's okay, actually. Maybe it'll be all right.
But coming out of that, I think it's a reasonable takeaway from Fight Club to be like, oh, maybe like Chuck Palahniuk, the novelist who wrote Fight Club, is the auteur here. And we should make 4 more of his books into movies. And I think they made 2 or 3 more. I think the only one both of us, we both watched Choke, right?
Yeah. Were there others? I mean, he's infamously difficult to adapt. Like, I don't know if they did try others. I've read a lot of his books. In most cases, because I was chasing a Fight Club high.
Oh, yeah. Invisible Monsters never actually made it through. It was development hell, is what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Survivor didn't make it through. Yeah.
Yeah. I remembered Choke as being my second favorite of his books at the time when I was, a teenager and going through that. And then I watched the movie directed by Clark Gregg, the actor, best known for playing Agent Coulson in the Marvel movies.
Weird. Yep.
And starring Sam Rockwell and Kelly MacDonald, 2 actors that I have great, sort of innate affection for. And this is just a fucking mess of a movie, right?
Oh, I didn't like it at all. Yeah, I was very turned off by Choke. It's a tough one. First off, I don't know how you make this into a movie. I mean, there's not a plot really. There's kind of like 4 sort of half plots going on. There's 4 B plots, and it feels like is what it makes up the whole of Choke. And
yeah, that's true. Most directly, I'd say it's clear watching this next to Fight Club that Choke lacks the Fincher polish and the energy he brings.
Oh, 100%.
Filmmaking.
100%. I'm sure the Fincher version of Choke would be much, much better. But I think even Palahniuk is chasing his own tail here.
I agree.
This is he wrote probably a handful of books that were trying to kind of capture that Fight Club magic. I liked it a lot more when he branched off and did different things. And this is definitely one of those. This is trying to do a lot of the same disillusionment and frustration and ennui, but just with some. Okay, here's what it is. Fight Club feels, I think, for all its specificity, I think that the fact of the Edward Norton character being this sort of everyman is very important. Like he is an audience insert. Like you are meant to feel that sort of disillusion with modern America and IKEA and having a job you don't particularly enjoy, and you were promised the world and you didn't get it. Now what? Now you're mad. There's a way to get in there. There's a reason that movie has a cult, and that's probably the biggest part of it. Is that you can see yourself quite easily there. You cannot see yourself in the Sam Rockwell character in Choke.
No, that's the thing, because he is not an everyman office drone. He is a colonial Williamsburg sex addict who also might be like the Messiah cloned from Jesus's Shroud of Turin or something, shit like that.
Yeah,
it's and I think that's exactly what the issue is here, and that's with the book. It's not necessarily that Fincher brought this to that. It's just Palahniuk chasing his own tail, you said, but Choke has the exact same satirical tone as Fight Club, but it doesn't have a satirical target that's as clear and as broad as all of late stage capitalism or, all of our issues with masculinity. And
it's very
specific. So people are acting just as weird as Marlon and Jack, but they're not acting out against a baseline of normality the way that those characters are in Fight Club.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't think this film should have been made, frankly. I mean,
no.
Unless like a master wanted to take it on, I guess I'd be like, okay. I'm still not, I still don't think there's a movie here necessarily. But, Clark Gregg, love Agent Coulson. He's great. But as a director, he does not have the chops to make this work. Not remotely. This out of hand just immediately. Within 15 minutes, you can tell this thing is off the rails. And, it's a tough one to take on. I'm just not sure what the appeal was beyond maybe catching the zeitgeist of Chuck Palahniuk slightly. That seems to be the only reason for this.
Yeah. It does seem like Palahniuk is an incredibly difficult person to adapt, and Fincher is the only one who's managed it so far. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's another thing that Choke doesn't have is just kind of the X factor of Brad Pitt giving one of the all-time movie star performances.
I mean, you would think a showcase role for Sam Rockwell potentially has quite a bit of juice. There's a lot for him to do here.
Yeah, but it's also kind of was getting at a minute ago, is that the character of Tyler Durden is so much clearer in what this character should be than whatever the Rockwell character's name was in this one. Vincent something, I think. I don't know.
Mancini? Or is that
Mancini? Yeah, it was something Italian. Yeah. And then, I think Kelly MacDonald might have been able to play Marla in Fight Club.
Totally.
About as well. But here, she's got tasked with acting just as insane as Marla, except she's a doctor and not just a full-board double-barrel basket case, the way that Marla is presented. And so, yeah, it's just... It's just a lesser version. It's a worse version of it, and it's hard to follow a Fincher like this.
This is a movie no one's seen, by the way. I think we're just introducing the existence of this movie to even our audience is just like, no, I didn't catch a joke. Sorry. I don't know. What was the most successful thing in the film for you? Did anything work in there?
Nothing's springing to mind. I mean, I'm sure there was a couple. I probably chuckled a couple of times. I like seeing young Gillian Jacobs.
Yeah, that was my pick too. My favorite part of the movie is Gillian Jacobs as sort of a dumb stripper, I guess is how you would describe that character. She's
dumb but pretty nice.
Yeah. Good cast.
Takes your top off if you're into that.
Yeah. We did talk about this when we discussed Fight Club. There is a movie that kind of reminded us of it, and succeeded in a lot of the ways it did. That isn't a Palahniuk book, which was Sorry to Bother You.
Yeah, that to me feels like the most spiritual successor to Fight Club that I've encountered.
I agree. It's a real hard thing to do. It turns out most people don't even try. That one probably comes the closest. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. But again, I don't know. I wouldn't say that feels like a Fincher ripoff. I feel it's riffing on Palahniuk, if anything. But even that, I kind of want to give it credit for being as original as it is. But it does
it's hard to be inspiring. It's hard to maintain the original voice when you are explicitly inspired by a thing. I mean, necessary in some sense, but it's also, it's a bit of a magic trick. And I think this one, I think that one does it. I'm not as taken with it as Fight Club, but it's playing in the same difficult to tread waters.
Yeah, I mean, Fight Club, obviously, we were right in the market for, and it's a pretty amazing artifact. Sorry to Bother You is funnier. I'll give it that. But But yeah, if we're doing a recommendation there, yeah, that's the best Fight Club ripoff, I guess, if we're going to call it that.
It's a shitty thing to call it.
Yeah, I know.
But it has the flavor of Fight Club. Yeah.
Yeah, let's move on. Let's move on to Social Network, because this is an interesting thing to me that didn't like until we started doing this just now. It didn't occur to me how Social Network has sort of spawned its own genre.
Yes.
Of like how socio-political explainer movies, kind of like The Big Short or Margin Call. I watched Dumb Money recently about the GameStop stock fiasco.
Well, it's kind of three-pronged, actually, because yes, it's those movies, and then it's also sort of the product biopic movies, if you might say. BlackBerry.
I do want to talk about these. Yes.
Tetris, things like that. And then it's also
the founder for McDonald's and the heir for Air Jordans. There's a Flaming Hot Cheetos movies.
There is.
Like that gets went into streaming series too to a bit that dramatize like the Elizabeth Holmes Theranos scandal or the WeWork collapse. We've gotten multiple Steve Jobs movies.
Social Network is low-key one of the most influential films of the century at this point, I think, for sure. And the other thing is, it is kind of codified the language that we use to talk about tech bros. That is, to my understanding, the first time that is identified as a thing. These sort of nerds who end up controlling the world. That is just something we have in movies now. Certainly in some of these product movies. But it's Silicon Valley is basically Social Network as a sitcom.
True. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a better version of it. I like that show. And some of these movies, like, Big Short, Margin Call, Moneyball, these are all, I'd say, really successful versions of this. I mean, they're the better Social Network ones. I did, we talked about the product biopics.
Yes.
I did want to talk about this because thinking about it in this way and and thinking about those movies at all, which is I just never bothered watching them, realized that this is maybe the most loathsome genre of film out there for me. That I like. It's the weird way the Social Network success combined with like the expanded universe era of IP exploitation, and those things kind of crossbreed and mutate into this subgenre of biopics about corporations.
It's frustrating.
And, yeah, like corporate biopics, man. Like not that just fills me with a sort of low but deep despair for humanity.
None of these have really hit exactly. I mean, they've been well regarded critically. None of them are like widely successful. I guess Air did pretty well. The Air Jordans film. I think that did well for itself. I didn't see that one because I was like, I'm not interested. I hear it's very good. It has a good cast. It's got, Affleck, Damon, Viola Davis, and yeah, well reviewed. But I was kind of just like, I don't want to see a movie about making shoes. So I think people feel the same. I think this is kind of a dead end, even as they keep making them. Maybe I'm.
But you can see how the enthusiasm for these concepts comes entirely from like the corporate side, the studio side of things.
Synergistic opportunities.
It's so much synergy, man. Yeah. Just synergy dripping out of our assholes. And yeah, it almost makes me more angry if there's actual craft brought to it and applied to it.
Well, BlackBerry is interesting then, because that one is that is about a dead end. We're not selling BlackBerries anymore, and it has sort of an opinion and attitude about corporate culture and these guys who made it. BlackBerry is a defunct product, so that gives it the opportunity to be a little less. Well, there's no synergy available with that one. It can be scabrous. It can be negative and have shitty things to say about these people, and it does. It has a low opinion of both its lead characters, really. The Jay Baruchel and Glenn Howerton characters are assholes in different ways. I'm a little surprised how hard they go after the Jay Baruchel. I was thinking he was going to be the, the guy we were supposed to like, the Thomas Middleditch of the film. No, he's an asshole too.
Yeah, there's a little bit of integrity to that movie because it's not a product that they're still selling, and it lacks that synergy. And yeah,
The third guy, I forget who played him. Do you remember this?
Some Canadian comedian. I don't think he's anybody famous in our.
I was annoyed that they seemed to be like positioning him as the moral voice of the movie. I found him very irritating.
Yeah,
but yeah, mostly it's kind of a look at these assholes type movie, and works as a comedy because of that. I think this is a pretty well made movie, Blackberry. I enjoyed it.
It was fine. I will happily, erase it from history if we meant we didn't get Flaming Hot Cheetos movies or Tetris movies to go along with it. But it was a fine version of it. It's not as good as Social Network, obviously. But that's so. I guess the two ways of interpreting the Social Network are it's sort of a Mark Zuckerberg biopic. So. That leads to Steve Jobs as being the next obvious target for a tech bro biopic, and it's sort of an origin of Facebook movie, which is what gives us the BlackBerry movie and the Cheetos and so forth. Also, it's Fincher collaborating with Aaron Sorkin, who's somebody who's an auteur in their own right, and so his attempt to branch out and prove that he was the secret sauce is to make a Steve Jobs movie with Danny Boyle, who, as much of a contemporary of Fincher as anybody. So almost a lateral move there. But, how do you feel about the Steve Jobs movie?
I think it's very good, actually. I think it's not as good as Social Network, for sure.
No.
But I think the performances are very good. Sorkin can write some good dialogue, especially when it's powerful men yelling at each other, which a lot of that movie is. And I think Danny Boyle is doing good things, doing interesting, surprising stuff to what could be a boring film. I like the structure of it. I think it's the best of the Social Network ripoffs. But forever in the shadow of that film.
I would give the edge to Moneyball, probably. But
that's more of its own thing, really. But it is a Sorkin, of course. Every Sorkin is a little bit kind of trying to recapture, I guess you would have to say his creative peak, which is Social Network, right?
Yeah. I don't know. West Wing is so much more his baby, but it's an uneven total package. But at its height was kind of, a lot of people's pick for the best thing on TV.
Yeah, and it was. He's had a number of highs, Mr. Sorkin. And, but I think, he won the Oscar. This established him firmly as a force in Hollywood in films, not just TV. And he's gone on to be a director in his own right in a lot of ways. He is directing The Social Network 2 currently. That is his project. Ugh.
Well, but even comparing Moneyball to Social Network, it's Sorkin dialogue, obviously, that gives it a similar flavor. And it's also about sort of upstart
iconoclastic disruptors, yes.
Yeah, taking over an industry, or to some extent, that's older and established. The Jobs movie is pretty good. It's got some really great performances in it, I think.
Seth Rogen was surprisingly great in that.
Yeah, best Seth Rogen performance I've ever seen. And I like the handling of the Wozniak character in that, I think, is really good. How he's in each of the 3 episodes of it, he's in conflict with the Jobs character, but just is sort of unwilling to be in conflict with them. Like he has to be, but does not really want to be, and how that's Rogen essays that is really well done, I thought. Jeff Daniels obviously is very reliable with Sorkin dialogue.
Winslet's good.
I think,
Fassbender's good. Yeah,
Fassbender's great as he always is. Also, should not be playing this role. He is clearly in superhero movie shape, which kind of fundamentally fucks up the presentation of the character. It does get even especially in the latter one where he's older and they can make him look a lot like this guy looked like. I forgot that I knew what Steve Jobs looked like and sounded like. Right, beyond a turtleneck, until I saw some of the later scenes in this, and oh yeah, that was exactly what he looked and sounded like. But also, he was just fucking. He's Michael Fassbender. He's like one of the most irrepressibly fuckable people that's ever walked the face of the earth.
Striking presence. I think that gives a certain juice to Steve Jobs, the character in the film Steve Jobs. Like, he has to sort of stand out, as this sort of one of a kind individual. And I think, movie star charisma is usually a good way to do that.
Maybe. Well, so one of the more interesting things about the Jobs movie, I think, is it does ask the question of like, what would you say you do here, Steve? What is your
I do like that.
secret sauce? And I think that is something that, honestly, if this movie had been made a couple years later, it probably could come through stronger, because now we're in an era where our tech bro overlords, I think, have revealed to a greater degree that the idea that they don't necessarily have the best clothes, even though they are emperors. And not all of these people are inherently geniuses necessarily because they made all the money off the company. And I think that's sort of a hard pill for Sorkin to swallow. He's a believer, like
great men
deep
theory.
Down in the great men of history theories. Yeah. And so his belief is that your Zuckerbergs or your Jobs, that they were this wildly successful. Ergo, they must have been great in some way. And it feels like...
Yeah, if you invented Facebook, you would have invented Facebook. Yes.
Right. And he can't quite nail down what it is that is so genius about them, which is one of the, I think, the more interesting things about the Jobs movie. Because, it really does like nail down... It focuses on a couple of failed launches and then ends with the one that's going to be wildly successful. But, it does kind of dig in a little bit and say, well, you didn't build these computers. You're... Mm-hmm. He's the guy, he plays the orchestra, which, okay. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's something to that. I mean,
he's Oscar Schindler. That's a loaded comparison.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's the figurehead. He's the guy who brings it all together. The director, maybe, if you will.
Right. That's a very Fincher. Attractive metaphor for a film director. Yeah.
Yeah. I do like that film, though. It surprised me, too, and it took me a while to get to it. I had to hear many people tell me it was good before I was like, yeah, I'll watch the Steve Jobs movie. I certainly haven't watched the Ashton Kutcher one. Never will, but that would be one of these two. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's things about it that frustrate me. That I think the 3-act structure where it's all, the sort of not uncut like one take or anything, but the half-hour lead up to these three big presentations separated by years, and that feels a bit artificial to me. Contrived, like
sure.
You weren't actually writing for this for the stage. We didn't have to commit to this, and then even hanging a lampshade on it in the last one, where he's like, "Why is it every time I'm doing one of these, everybody like goes to a bar and gets hammered and comes to tell me what they think?"
Yeah,
I don't know if that helps.
It is an odd structure because you're just like, okay, he's going to have his scene with Jeff Daniels. He's going to have his scene with Seth Rogen. We catch up on where everybody is and what they've been doing and what they think of what Steve Jobs is doing now. And, I do appreciate that it is kind of, it's poking at him. It's certainly not hagiography. And most of these aren't. Even social
it lands in a pretty sympathetic place for that.
Yeah.
With the iPod thing and as the relationship with the daughter, that's pretty messed up, Maybe it just irks me as a father of daughters, like that. We're really giving him a lot of credit by the end for eventually kind of coming around to supporting his daughter.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it is part of that Sorkin thing. He does kind of love these guys at the end of the day. Certainly Jobs more than Zuckerberg, I think. Even
yes, but I wonder how much is that Fincher's influence, the more scabrous elements to Social Network.
Well, I think Sorkin does hate young people. I do believe that.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, obviously, the thing that makes Social Network so great is the confluence of Fincher and Sorkin working together. They are kind of at odds. They seem to have different opinions of Zuckerberg, but not in explicit ways. They they're approaching him differently, and I think that helps a lot at making that film as kind of compelling and enigmatic as it is. I think history has kind of borne out that he's maybe more of an asshole than we are allowed to think of him in the film, but it's at least gesturing that way, and you see kind of the roots of where we are now with Mr. Zuckerberg, and that's all great. I mean, that movie, I love that film. I've seen Social Network so many times at this point, and it I think to some extent makes a lot of the rest of these things irrelevant to me. I mean, I'll watch them or not, but it's hard to stick with me when I've got Social Network. Kind of doing all the same things better. And that's true of Seven too, I guess. What can I say?
You didn't watch the Dumb Money movie, did you?
I did not. How's Seth Rogen in that one?
He's pretty good in that one, actually.
He's good.
I wanted to connect that to, he's a good actor. He's easy to underestimate because he, has his sort of deliberate schlubby, his everyman vibe, as he explained in that Curb Your Enthusiasm episode. But yeah, he's actually quite a good actor. The thing that I would connect this to, the what we're talking about with Jobs and the Social Network, is I feel like this movie does really sanitizes the sort of like the Reddit meme lord guy that is the focus of it.
Oh, I bet he sucks. Yeah, I don't know much about it, but
yeah.
I think it's safe to assume most of the time.
There's a couple of like of sort of passing mentions of like, yeah, there's some pretty nasty stuff in that subreddit. There's racist and everybody's throwing R words around and everything else, and it gets brushed off like, yeah, it's the internet that there's a lot of that crap, but he's making some good points, when you get down to it, and blah blah blah. And the other thing it really brought out to me is that you're gonna get just the imitation Social Network score. You're gonna get some that's in the BlackBerry movie too, and whatever. When you got the internet working or people doing computer stuff, you're gonna get that sort of knockoff synthy moody score that just is an essential element of all of these, it seems. Probably true even some of the better ones. Yeah.
I mean, we haven't even talked about like the other movies that got adapted from the author of the Social Network source material. There was 21, the shitty Kevin Spacey film no one remembers, so we don't have to talk about it. No one remembers him. But it's impossible to understate how significant a film Social Network was. I think it is. It's one of the biggest ones of the century, and continues to be. We're getting another fucking Social Network movie by Sorkin. So
right.
So it's happening. And I mean, as oligarchs, tech bros rule the world, I imagine we'll still get movies of this type, and movies valorizing their products and their companies.
Yes, as they buy more and more movie studios, we will get those.
Yeah. I saw the recent War of the Worlds film starring Ice Cube, where the world is saved by Amazon deliverymen.
Is that really how that goes?
Yeah.
I know everybody hates that movie, but
it fucking sucks, man. Don't watch it. It's not fun. No, bad. It's boring. Yeah. It's a rough one, man. No question. It's kind of like if you. I don't want to talk about that one anymore.
No, we don't need. Yeah. We've given their brand synergy enough air as it is.
So
the next one that we skipped over Zodiac. I don't know that we. That is at once probably maybe the purest Fincher movie.
Influential film. I wish that was more influential. Yeah. I mean,
and it's.
You can kind of say they've made things like that, but not really. I mean, the closest is Mindhunter, which is Fincher.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's, very, true crime is its own thing.
Yeah. It is a docudrama, never the most popular of genres in any case. And, the film didn't do too well. And you can also kind of be like, there's a lot of serial killer things. There's a lot of true crime things. So,
Sure.
Maybe it takes some inspiration from Zodiac because it's such a great film, but it's not chasing any trends that Zodiac created because it wasn't.
Yeah. The things that are most interesting about Zodiac are throwback kind of vibes anyway, the way that it is a movie set in the 70s and 60s, but feels like a 70s movie
Yeah.
in other ways. And
I mean,
so
the
even that,
explosion of the actors.
he's being a bit of a chameleon.
You know, the success of the people who starred in that movie, I think, is probably the longest lasting Zodiac. What would you say? Yeah, the thing that gave us Robert Downey Jr. and Mark Ruffalo kind of established that they were giant movie stars there, probably.
Yeah, Gyllenhaal also made his way into the Marvel movies eventually too. But okay, so we don't need to get into that. I think the last one to address is Gone Girl, which
and maybe
is another one.
You know, touches of Dragon Tattoo in there as well, but mostly Gone Girl, I think. Yeah, which is true crime.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, not quote unquote true. I mean,
but it's about the genre.
It is about the true crime genre. Even though, it's not a true crime story, but it is about true crime. And so yes, there is a whole subgenre of Scandinavian murder mysteries that Dragon Tattoo falls into. I don't associate that much with Fincher, so I was kind of going to breeze right past it. But
yeah, that's fine. And appropriate, but Gone Girl. I mean, this one's a little harder to pin down because Gone Girl is an adaptation of a novel. There are other adaptations of Gillian Flynn novels out there. Sharp Objects and what was the other one that no one saw? The Dark Places, I want to say. I don't know. Didn't see it. But
Water or maybe something like that.
The Charlize Theron film that no one has seen. And
yeah.
So this is also part of when, Fincher was making airport novels into movies kind of
Dark
deliberately. The biggest hit, novels that you could just, the popular fiction, turning it into large-scale entertainment. It's a good way to get a big budget on a genre film that isn't a superhero thing. And he kind of took that and ran with it. I think Shutter Island, which is a Martin Scorsese version of a Dennis Lehane novel, is kind of doing a similar thing and has some Fincher stuff. But I didn't revisit it for this, but I think that it was a little bit in the water at the moment, and maybe because of Fincher. But mostly Gone Girl itself would be the
Shutter Island to me is a movie that I do not like, and it's probably because it feels a little out of time in that it feels like it's from the late 90s big twist boom, and came out 10 years later when just my movie brain was more calcified and
it's you got to buy the twist or that movie falls apart. And it's a big swing twist. I just like it because it's Scorsese doing weird genre shit. That's fun for me. And there's
fair enough.
Oh hey, hi Ted Levine, gonna be weird. Yes you are. That's going on all through the movie, stuff like that. So I enjoy it, but again, I mean, I didn't feel the need to rewatch it for this, so I'd have to talk about it more later if we were to do that. But
yeah, and I didn't take the time to rewatch all of Sharp Objects, but I remember thinking that was a pretty solid little miniseries. I mean, Flynn is a very good writer, and Amy Adams is a very good actor. So there's like a floor of how bad things could get when as long as you have somebody competent behind the camera. Yeah, my takeaway from that was I felt in hindsight like maybe. Well, I thought Sharp Object should have been a movie, not a streaming series.
Yes.
But it made me question whether Gone Girl should have been a streaming series. If it had to be one-on-one, they might have been better off going the opposite route. I mean, I don't really want to mess with Gone Girl as it is because I love that movie.
Just so.
But but you can see how it could be a mini series with some pretty clean chapter breaks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's a novel. It's a little middled because it's not a series, but it's longer than a movie maybe. But I don't know. I think ultimately the way that Gone Girl came out argues strongly in favor of making that a movie, and I'd certainly extend that to Sharp Objects. I think it's pretty much perfect. As certainly as an act of adaptation, certainly as putting the story on film and maintaining everything that's really interesting and cool about it. You can't argue with Gone Girl. I think it's great, and I haven't read the novel. I hear it's a pretty faithful adaptation, but the amount of theming and plot and character work that makes its way into a film that's only like 2 hours 15 minutes. I mean, something like that. It's a feast, that movie, and that's
that really. was one that it took our doing the miniseries about it for me to realize how much of a Fincher movie it is. Because I had always kind of thought of him as somebody, more of a chameleon that let the collaborators' voice shine through, and going through all of them in that, seeing that ending in context with the basement scene in Zodiac and the other basement scene in Dragon Tattoo, and even go back to Seven, I could see like a sort of reflected version of that, of just like that whole movie is about Morgan Freeman deciding to care again, even though he knows all the reasons he shouldn't. And he should just walk away.
It is the doomed knowledge thing. Like, do you really want to know?
Yeah. What's in the box? What do you want to know? That Fincher characters have to know what's in the box. And in this case, he wants to live in the box. Affleck's character. But yeah.
To this end. Yeah.
Who do you think's done the best then of all these collaborators of striking on their own and proving themselves?
I mean, I think
independent.
I think none of them have matched the Fincher original. Not a one. I guess I have to say Sorkin and Steve Jobs. I have to. I don't think there's an alternative.
I mean, I think if I give him between Steve Jobs and Moneyball.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I'd say he's done the best. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but he's just doing his thing that was really well synthesized in Social Network with Fincher.
Yeah.
That remains his best film.
And really well established prior to working with Fincher in a way that, his other, they were all like the first time these other people are being adapted.
Yeah. So I don't know if that even counts necessarily.
Yeah.
I did want to talk a little bit about Burning, because I did watch it, and it's a cool movie, like you said. And that is
so this is my recommendation to you, trying to come up with okay, if you're not just aping the most surface level stuff, is there a movie that shares thematic preoccupations with Fincher that we've identified? Sort of like the Argo thing with Tarantino. And I suggested the 2018 Korean movie Burning.
Yes. Which I'd always meant to get to, and then it sort of, slipped off my mind, and, it has a somewhat generic title and just sort of got forgotten. And then I was like, oh yeah, Burning. Oh, I'll check that out. And I did. Cool movie. Very cool movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is the Zodiac basement scene writ large, essentially.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating about this movie that I liked so much about it is it's doing that stuff. It's doing Gone Girl stuff a little bit. It's a missing woman, and the search for her. It's doing The Vanishing a little bit, but it is refracted through the prism of Korean life, which is fascinating. I love seeing foreign movies take on taking inspiration from from Hollywood specifically, big budget American movies that work their way into this small Korean romantic thriller. That's so cool. It's not unlike something like RRR, actually. It's doing an American movie version of a Korean version, or in RRR's case, Indian version of what the American cinema they've seen from us. Fascinating to see that stuff, Usually in America, we see it the other way around. We see the, stuff inspired by samurai movies or what have you. So that's really cool. And because it is a Murakami novel, Burning, or a short story, I believe.
Oh, really?
And you see a lot of his fascinations, like a lot of that movie is following this guy around while he prepares food and, follows after cats and masturbates. It's very Murakami. But it's also a fucking serial killer thriller at the same time. Really neat stuff. And the ending, the last, let's say half hour. Wow. I was gripped by that, man. Powerful stuff. Good movie.
Yeah. And the serial killer thing is a preoccupation of Fincher's. He keeps returning to that. And the ambiguity.
Yes, so good
of it, and of course the vanishing, the compulsion to walk right into the danger just because you have that burning need to know the thing.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Burning. That's the name of the movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, a really cool little thing, and not at all what I expected it to be. Very, very good stuff. Stephen Yeun, really wonderful performance in it. Actor I recognize, of course, from Walking Dead and kind of American Junk for the most part. He's wonderful in this. And
and from I Think You Should Leave, of course.
Yeah. That scene is almost in Burning, by the way.
That's true. No, that's a fantastic performance. I mean, was he nominated for something for that?
Not in America.
It's hard to get nominated for a non-English speaking role, but especially in 2018, pre-Parasite or whatever.
Right. I mean, that is I guess I don't know. I think stuff like Burning leads to Parasite. There was a massive influx of really strong Korean films in the last 20 years that we're getting out here, that people are in America are watching, like Bong Joon-ho, Park Chan-wook making movies that Americans watch. It's awesome.
Do you think Parasite owes anything to Fincher?
Maybe a little. I was thinking about it. Not in a way I can draw a direct line, but
I think
I could see him doing an American version of that.
The social satire approach of Fight Club and the sort of like twisty, like big twist and sort of like starts grounded and goes into this increasingly satirical zone, the progression of Gone Girl. But of course, all that's filtered through the Koreanness of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see some influence there. I would not shock me if Bong Joon-ho is a Fincher fan.
Yeah, I can actually see a similarity in their films, and that they're sort of a genre swaps within the movie itself, sort of comedy living next to thriller elements, the novelistic quality to some of it. I mean, I'd have to give this more thought to really have a cogent argument, but yes, they are similar directors, I would say.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if Fincher's got a Mickey 17 in him.
No, he hasn't shown much interest in sci-fi.
I'd like to see it. If
Fight Club's probably the closest.
Yeah. I don't know. Should I want to mention Red Rooms very quickly on the way out the door here.
Oh, okay.
French-Canadian film called Red Rooms. It is a serial killer thriller from last year. It is, watching it, I was just like, holy shit, that's a Fincher movie. It is strikingly Fincher-esque in many of its particulars. Once again, it's doing that fascinating cultural swap thing. This is a movie about a murderer on trial, who is accused of murdering several teenage girls and filming it and putting it on the internet. The movie follows this woman who is fascinated and obsessed with the case. Very much a true crime junkie type, or at least that's what it seems at first. We are following her around. We are never privy to what the hell is actually going on with her. We don't know if she's a serial killer junkie, or if she's some sort of angel of vengeance, or maybe she's a collaborator. We don't know what her deal is. And it keeps you on the hook with that pretty much the entire movie. It is an absolutely riveting character study where we don't really get to know the character. Reminded me a lot of Gone Girl in a lot of the particulars and the way it's satirizing true crime and just sort of this enigmatic central figure that could go any way, that could break any direction. It is
this sounds really interesting and
it's great
and compelling, but you also kind of warned me off of it.
Well, that's the thing. This is an evil film. This is, especially to the parent of a child, this is a film that will mess you up. This is going to ruin your day. It is kind of one of the more upsetting things I've ever seen, I would have to say. If you're familiar with the French New Wave extremity horror movement, this is French-Canadian, but it's playing in those waters. What's interesting about it is there's no on-screen violence. You don't see a single thing in this movie. Nonetheless, you will be shocked at how effective sound can be at making you feel awful. It is a film I do not lightly recommend, even as I'm recommending it here. It's as upsetting movie as you can watch, I would say. Much more so than much more violent movies, even. Yeah.
Well, much more so than Fincher's serial killers.
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. It's way more so. It's,
how would you describe, like, Fincher's serial killer stuff? It's not.
7's pretty grueling.
The most violent. I mean, Zodiac's got the one, like, sort of on-screen stabbing attack.
That's a rough one.
Pretty rough. Yeah. But also a lot of that takes place off-screen because it's going for sort of a journalistic thing of not showing things that don't have living witnesses to provide firsthand accounts. I don't know, they're not playing it safe or anything, but they are just kind of weirdly satisfying in the end as filmed entertainments, as stories, I guess. I think just the craft, maybe it makes it so that even though it's horrible subject matter, you don't come out of it feeling gross and disturbed the way that you're describing from Red Rooms.
Well, Red Rooms is those things too, but it goes the extra mile when it comes to the gnarliness. I mean, I think that it can't be understated how a good story well told will pave over a lot of the issues you might have with the thing, you know? A difficult watch becomes much less difficult if it's just excellent. Case in point, maybe Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which another film where you don't see much on-screen violence, but holy shit, it's gnarly. It's a difficult movie that I've seen, you know, a half dozen times because it's also kind of a masterpiece. Like I'm just sort of intoxicated by how well made it is. And that is kind of Fincher's thing. He is so good at making movies that he can kind of do it about any subject. And I'm going to have a positive emotional response to it.
Also, I would say
Craft.
Texas Chainsaw is a little different in how it
it's not a Fincher.
quote unquote has doesn't have on-screen violence. Like you do see people get sledgehammered in the head and on-screen chainsawed. Like you don't see the chainsaw ripping up the flesh or the meat hook going into the back, but that's still what's in the scene is that happening to the person. It's not Seven where you're coming upon the aftermath and having like, well, we think what must have happened here is this, or having a victim recount it just verbally after the fact.
No, I mean, I would be an asshole if I were to be like, you should watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre because it's actually not that violent. I think that's a foolish thing to say. But, you know, it's just, it's to the point that seeing things on screen, which is true of Seven and Red Rooms and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, is not as effective as what filmmaking can do for you. You know, there's always a meaner, more upsetting way to do it than just showing the thing. You know, you'll see incredibly violent horror films. That do nothing to you or make you laugh and clap like Dead Alive. There's no movie more violent than Dead Alive. It's hilarious though, you know?
Right.
I don't know. We're getting far afield from David Fincher.
Yeah. No, I think my favorite example of that is the Hannibal TV show.
They show you a lot of shit on that show, man.
One of the most, well, I know, but it's always after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
They come upon a crime scene and recreate it or whatever. You never, I hardly ever see a killer actually killing anybody in that.
That's true.
But it's so disturbing, and it's incredible what they were allowed to put on to NBC.
It's very weird.
Network television because they don't show the killer actually using the knives.
You know, it's interesting. I would say the Hannibal is a post-Fincher version of Silence of the Lambs, maybe taking cues from a lot of Fincher movies, maybe.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's my favorite version of that character for it. So yeah.
Yeah.
David Fincher, he's good. Yeah, I think that's our ultimate thesis.
Yeah, like I think it's hard to do what he does simply because it's so craft forward and he's one of the best at that. So yeah, good filmmaker, huh? I don't know. Yeah. We're gonna do the rest of these guys too, right? Who's next? I don't even know.
Yeah, who's next? Nolan, I believe, I think it's Nolan. Third one.
All right.
So we'll have to figure out what Nolan's lineage is.
Yeah, and talk about some Sam Mendes films. All right.
Okay.
Thank you for listening. All right, this is us signing out. Good night.